Hi everybody, Trudy here, One Grounded Angel. This is the weekly angel card reading video that I do each and every week, and this is for the week beginning May the 20th to the 26th, 2019. So let me start with a deck that I don't use very often, but every time I do, I get some incredible feedback because the illustrations are beautiful. So certainly the feedback is not anything to do with me, but just because these cards are so beautiful. I mean, look at this. All that glitters. I must remember to tag the illustrator when I post this card, actually. So this is kind of about how we get trapped or how we can get lured in by society's kind of ideas about status, about material kind of lust, all those sort of things. And it's also about how we can become a little bit blinded by the shininess of something. One example would be someone who looks really like a date, who looks really amazing on paper, but you can kind of sense there's something a bit off of them. And that doesn't mean they're untrustworthy, it just means there's something going on there that you're maybe not seeing because you're so blinded or dazzled by this whole package. So in some ways this card might be telling you not to be fooled by external appearances. It might also be telling you not to trust something that looks too good to be true. Often it is. So it might be like a job opportunity. You think it sounds perfect, and then when you actually do some research, you realize, oh, a lot of people are really unhappy with that particular boss. So these are just examples. Of course, you've got to apply this to your individual circumstances and what's going on in your life. But the message is, please don't be sucked in by the way things look or what people say about things. It's really, you've got to really trust your intuition and do some research as to what is going on underneath the surface. And it also might be a call for you to look at your goals and make sure you're not striving for something because it will look good on paper or on LinkedIn maybe. You know, if you've got a goal of being a CEO by the age of 35, that might be a great goal, but maybe that job, maybe that company is actually not right for you. So but you can get so fixated on by how good that title would look that you're maybe not recognizing that. So it's not necessarily saying you're off track. It just means do a bit more work here and actually make sure your focus is not going on what other people say or think or societal kind of aspirations. Hopefully that makes sense. Tuesday, now the 21st of May, shuffling the Goddess Guidance cards. I love these cards. Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? Green Tara. Now, if you do yoga, you probably know there's a number of different Taras. There's white Tara as well. I have a feeling last time one of the Taras came up, I actually posted the wrong card because I just saw a Tara, reach for it, photographed it and put it up on the day. Whoops. But anyway, I tend to think when that happens, maybe someone needed that particular card instead of the one that it actually was. Interestingly enough, my message was actually right. It was just the card illustration. But a lot of people have told me they actually look at the words instead of the card anyway, which is good for me to remember because sometimes I can spend a lot of time looking for the perfect backdrop. I don't think before even looking. And also because Instagram is a really visual medium, so I'm quite surprised sometimes that people are so invested in the words. But that's good for me, obviously, as a writer. Anyway, back to the card, start delegating. So some people are resistant to the idea of sharing the load. If you were brought up to believe that you need to be the strong one, maybe one parent walked out and you needed to assume responsibility pretty early, and so you sort of became conditioned to think that you need to do everything yourself. Maybe you you were scared of appearing weak, so you don't want to ask people for help. Maybe you're in a really competitive job industry and you feel that if you ask people for help, you'll look like you're not competent. So, and it could be about not so much even delegating, but about opening up to other people. This idea, I talk about this a lot whenever we get a card around giving and receiving. We are, wired for connection. Brene Brown is very hot on that sort of message. So we do need to open up and we do need to share. And I know that can be really triggering for a lot of people. So, and certainly you don't have to share with every single person. If you feel that someone's not trustworthy, you don't have to tell them your innermost thoughts. But it is really about being prepared to say, this isn't going well for me and I need someone else to help me. For some of you, this might be telling you to go and get some help with something you're struggling with, like see a psychologist or a healer to work through something instead of trying to do it all yourself and manage it all yourself. You've got so many people around you, including your divine angelic support team, your spiritual team. And I spoke last week about how we need to ask them for support in order for them to be able to, or to be authorized to help. But certainly if this does relate to you literally about delegating, please remember that you don't lose anything when you ask other people to help. In fact, you gain the potential to do things a whole lot better. Yeah, I think particularly women can struggle with that because sometimes we're trying to fix everybody. And there's this whole idea of everybody else's, the superhero who's getting everything done, so I need to do that too, and that's very damaging. We know that from a lot of mental health messages in the media. We know that this idea of I need to internalize everything and not share when I'm struggling is hugely destructive. So Wednesday, courage. I feel like this can be a really difficult message for people to receive sometimes. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One might be that we associate courage with doing something really bold, like jumping out of a plane with a parachute, things like that. It's not really about the big things. It's about the small things that you need to be a bit braver towards, and perhaps that act of courage is asking for help. Perhaps that act of courage is applying for a job that you really want but you're scared you're not good enough for. So those sort of everyday kind of acts of courage. So yeah, I mean, obviously you will be best placed to know how this relates to you, but what I would say is whenever you feel like you're getting stuck or things are repeating or you feel like there's no options, that is usually an opportunity for you to be courageous. And I spoke, I think it was last week, about how we can get stuck in that fixed mindset instead of the growth mindset, which is a lot more conducive to growth and personal development. The fixed mindset where nothing ever changes, I suck at everything, I can't fix this, the world is against me, that sort of thing. Whereas the growth mindset or mentality is more about how am I going to find a new way to work through this? And if you have a growth mindset, and we're not necessarily in one camp or the other, we can oscillate, but ideally we want to call ourselves out when we're lapsing into that really fixed mindset and say, if I want this to get better, I'm going to need to try to do things differently because what I'm doing is not working. So maybe I need to ask for help to do that. And interestingly, the full moon, which was last weekend, is in Scorpio, which is a fixed sign. It's not mutable. It's called fixed, and there's, I think, 4 other signs who fall into this category. And that means that can manifest as stubbornness, as sort of chucking things in and going, oh, this will never work, I'm not going to try it ever again. Quitting, I guess, if I really want to boil it down. All those sorts of things can be kind of characteristic of a Scorpio, whereas in fact, what's interesting about the Scorpio energy is it's also associated with transformation, and we need to do things differently if we want to transform. We can't just wait for them to change. That's just not how life works. So it may be that you're getting really triggered around that kind of area at the moment because you are a bit fixed in your mindset instead of opening up a bit more. Let's go to Thursday now. Eternal love. So when we talk about love, we often think automatically of romantic love, but this card is about all types of love. So how this lands for you is going to depend on what's going on. It may be that you need to be reminded that you are loved. Maybe you feel like you're not loved and there's no love out there for you. And if you are long time single, this certainly was a problem for me. I felt like there was no love in the world for me. And one thing that helped, this didn't necessarily changed things for me, but on some level it was an important first step, was that starting to recognize how much love there was in other forms around me, because we know that being grateful for what we do have helps attract more blessings, whereas thinking there's no one loves me is going to attract more people who don't love you. And the fact is, not everybody loves you. Unfortunately, that's just the deal. And you're not here for everybody, so that's kind of okay. Once I started to recognize the richness of the friendships that were around me, the love within my family, and particularly with the animals that we have in the family, our pets, that unconditional love, it's so beautiful. The love that I had for the planet and for the world, all those sorts of things were really valuable, and starting to really shift me out of that fixed mindset about love. So that's one example. Eternal love. I am getting, this can be about the love that you have for someone who's passed on, and if you are bereaved, you're grieving for someone, I send you so much love, because that is a hugely difficult process, one which takes so much longer than anyone thinks it should, but that's just how it goes, and in fact can take your whole life potentially. But one thing you do need to know is that your loved one still loves you, and as I've said in previous videos, death ends a life, it doesn't end a relationship. That relationship is ongoing. So that might be where the eternal part of that eternal love message is heading for you. I'm going to read the text here. Oops, if I can actually hold the card. Help me perceive all of the love that surrounds me so that I can feel safe receiving, expressing, and giving love. So I've talked about receiving love in terms of letting people help you. So it feels like that's a bit of a theme for this week. And yeah, again, recognizing the love around you is super important for, when we're struggling with something, knowing that we've got so many wonderful friends who are there for us is super helpful. Okay, Friday. Yeah, just changed my mind about the card deck and then is this right? I think this is right. Yep, okay. Oh, shield yourself. Okay, I post this article on my Facebook page about shielding so regularly, because we are so much more sensitive than what we think we are, and the criticism, you're too sensitive, is bandied about a lot. In actual fact, it's great to be sensitive. If you feel things, fantastic, that's your freaking superpower. So the problem is, we want to make sure that we're not so exposed that we're picking up on other people's negativity or their cynicism or their limiting beliefs around the world, such as, I guess if I go back to the romantic example, something that I was constantly exposed to was, there's a man drought, there's not enough good men in Sydney. That was sort of things that people around me were saying, super limiting and not true at all. And in fact, it's not true, those sort of things, even if the statistics say so. The universe doesn't work by statistics, so don't even worry about that. But things like limiting beliefs around, every time there's a major world event like a tragedy or something like that, people can get really, really get extremely fearful and respond in quite extremist sort of views of, sort of that xenophobic kind of stuff. So, I mean, this is the reason I don't watch the news, because I am sensitive and I do pick up that fear-based energy that's being emitted so often in the news. And in fact, I often take breaks from Facebook for the reasons, and have to hide a lot of people because of this sort of stuff that people are posting. I don't need it. And as well as active avoidance of the sort of people who are triggering you or who are negative, I also recommend shielding your energy, because the fact is, sometimes you don't choose who you work with or who you're related to. So shielding your energy so you can be around them, but you're not taking on board their energy. People sometimes think that they're a very caring person if they really feel other people's sadness. That's not helpful to them at all, though. So why would you want to be so miserable about your friend who's suffering that you can't function that well? That's not helpful to them, and it's not helpful to you. Your job is to feel empathy for people, but not to let that become your stuff, so that you're extremely sad about it as well. I mean, you can be sad but not have it making you feel like the whole world is sad as well. Does that make sense? You can still find joy in your own life. Anyway, shielding's the way to go. You're basically asking the angels or any divine entity that can help you, I call an Archangel Michael, to place like a bubble around you, a shield, an energetic shield, so that love can go out, love can come in, but nothing adverse is going to come in. You can be aware that that person next to you is quite toxic in the next cubicle over, but that's not affecting you. You're not going home gossiping about people in the way that they did. Hopefully that makes sense. Where do I go next? Should I go to this card deck? I'm getting called to this one. I haven't really planned this out this week. I'm just kind of feeling my way through what needs to be shared. Opportunity to forgive. Random thing about this card is it has 2 koalas on it. I'm really not sure what that's got to do with anything. Maybe koalas are symbolic for somebody, or maybe they're symbolic of compassion in some way. Koalas spend 20 hours a day sleeping, which sounds freaking awesome to me, but I don't know what that's got to do with forgiveness. I guess maybe it's about being at peace. Anyway, this is about you needing to come to peace. When we talk about forgiveness, what we really say, we're not saying you need to tolerate bad behavior and let people behave badly towards you. What we're saying is you need to not let their behavior weigh you down. It's kind of like shielding. So if you are holding a resentment or bitterness, any kind of unresolved kind of unfinished business or something towards perhaps an ex, an old friend, a former boss, whatever. This is really just asking you to let it go. And that doesn't mean you're saying that what happened was fair or right. It probably wasn't. If it's still bothering you, it probably wasn't. But you can't let it define you, and you can't let it weigh you down to the point that because that affects your capacity for love. We actually have infinite capacity for love, but we put barriers and all sorts of we put barriers around it. I'll just say it like that, because we are afraid of getting hurt again because this thing that happened in our past, and we don't even know we're doing it a lot of the time. We're building walls around our hearts. So if you can let go of that and say, I don't like this happened, but I'm not going to let it be part of my stuff anymore. There are various ways you can do that. Now, I used to advocate quite strongly for writing a letter to the person in which you pour out your heart and then burn it if that's safe to do so, or tear it up. A lot of people find that therapeutic, and I certainly have myself. And I also used to advocate for doing a forgiveness meditation. There are tons on YouTube, I believe, or there was last time I looked. The reason I sort of offer that advice with some caution is because I now, as an energy healer, the more work I do, the more I realize that that's not going to go far enough for a lot of people. For some of you, that will be fine, and more power to you. But for some of you, that wound is attached to a limiting belief you hold, a fear that's deep in your energy. You're going to need some healing around that to actually be able to let that go properly. And so I do recommend, if that's the case for you, you look into energy healing, because the energy around us cannot be fixed or cured or resolved simply by thinking, I don't want to worry about that anymore. And I'm not saying that your mindset isn't important, it's hugely important, but I'm saying we've got deep wounds, we've got things from the past, we've got these kind of limiting beliefs around no one can be trusted, etc. Those need energy healing to resolve. And an example I often give about why energy healing is so important is, if you know logically that not all men are cheats, but in your heart you're still scared about getting into a relationship with a man because he might cheat on you, that is a gap between your intellect and your energy. And it's not going to go away by any sort of beliefs that we put into your intellect. Telling you that men don't cheat, is that a lot of men, or not all men cheat, or whatever way you want to phrase it, is not going to actually change the way you feel on that deep level. We have to go after the energy and really resolve that block. And energy healing is a really fantastic way to do that. And shamanism can be helpful as well. Sunday we're up to. Hopefully a lighter message now, because that one is a little intense. Okay. Emerging. We had this card 2 weeks ago. I really love the way, incidentally, there's a human face on this, but an illustration as the body. I think it's quite unique. And I think it's a human hand as well. Anyway, emerging. Those ideas around transformation that I've talked about lately come to the fore here. So we are growing into better versions of ourselves. We need to keep doing the work to get to that point. It's not just going to happen, but this does offer you hope that you are on the right track and that you are moving in the right direction and that you are merging into the person that you want to be and that you are meant to be, in fact, that your soul came here to become in human form. So you are, I guess the essence of this card is about not getting fixated on where you are now, because when we do that, we can often think that that's how it is. For example, I had this friend in my early 20s, and I started to do a little bit of personal development work on myself, not really spiritually, that came later. And she said, but don't you just think the people we are now is the people we're always going to be? And at the time I was like, no. And now I'm like, no, how could you say that? I mean, we're not friends anymore for various reasons, but I mean, at the time it was sort of more a source of, I don't think so, like, and surprised that someone even felt that way. Whereas now I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so wrong. Everybody obviously, and maybe this person doesn't even feel this way now, everybody is where they're at. And now that I'm further down the track, I can kind of understand the fears that lead someone to think, I'm going to cling on to the person I am now because I feel safe here and I don't want to change because it's too scary, which is actually more painful in the long run than actually going through the process of change. But because you become a better version of yourself, a more resilient person, a stronger person, a more self-assured. But then, of course, you do get more challenges. That's just life. So please don't get fixated on where you're at and thinking this is the way it's always going to be. That's not true at all. You are emerging. You're in a process of blooming. The flowers are symbolic of that. And I always talk about how when we plant the seeds, we don't have any control over when those flowers grow or if they grow at all, because maybe the goal wasn't quite right for us in the first place. But try to understand it takes time. Be patient with yourself and please keep going. Do not stay stuck is probably the strongest message that comes out of that. So let's look at the week. I think I already mentioned receiving as a theme. Receiving and connecting with others, letting other people help us, not trying to do it all on our own. There are no medals given out for managing everything on your own. None at all. I guess a bit of maybe energy healing comes to the fore as well in terms of making sure you're not taking on other people's stuff and really being alert as to where you need to do some healing within yourself as well. So that's it for this week. That's May 20th to 26th, 2019. These cards go on my socials every day. My Instagram is @OneGroundedAngel. My Facebook page is One Grounded Angel. You probably already know that because that's no doubt where you found this video. And you can reach out to me if you want any information around healing or booking your own personal angel card reading, and the best way to do that is via my website, and that's www.onegroundedangel.com. Head to the bookings form. There's also articles on there as well about things like healing and how you know whether an angel card reading is right for you and that sort of thing as well. So thanks everybody. I'll be back next week. Have a terrific week.